Hey everybody, it's Charles, your hobby hero, coming at you with another video today. We're going to be discussing everything you need to know for the new Challenger series for the Lorcana card game. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button down in the bottom corner. I do appreciate it. I do put out regular content about the hobbies that I love the most, with this channel being dedicated to the Lorcana game. Now, you heard me right. Last week, they finally announced what would be our Worlds Qualifier Championship Series for the Lorcana card game. And since then, there have actually been a slew of changes, updates, and almost daily new information coming about it. So I'm kind of going to consolidate the weekend's updates in the video here for you. If you guys have any other questions, make sure you leave them in the comment section down below, and we'll go ahead and jump in. Okay, so let's start with the 6 North American locations that we have here. We have the May 25th and 26th in Atlanta, Georgia. Signups for that were just this past Sunday, but we'll get into that here in a little bit. We've got June 8th and 9th in Chicago, Illinois. Signups for that are supposed to be this coming Sunday on Easter, which, again, put a pin in that. We'll come back to that here briefly. Then we have July 20th through 21st in Fort Worth, Texas. We've got August 24th and 25th in Toronto, Ontario. So our one Canada location. And then we've got September 21st through 22nd in Las Vegas, Nevada, and October 26th and 27th in Seattle, Washington. So a few things I wanted to mention about the North American locations and dates. One, this first one actually falls on Memorial Day weekend, which is really a bummer. I can't participate in it. I've got, a wife, kids. We have plans standing every Memorial Day weekend, and a lot of people do. So you hate to see a big event line up with a national holiday. Most people are going to have plans. Now, I get it. When you're talking about competitive environments, people are making sacrifices to travel all the time. But especially in a game like Lorcana, where they are focused on, family and kids and everybody being able to kind of participate and enjoy this game, putting events like this on major holiday weekends is just a no-no, and I hope we don't see it going forward. I mean, you wouldn't put an event like this on Christmas weekend. You wouldn't put it on Easter weekend. You tend to stay away from those. One, it's not great for attendance, but two, you put people in awkward situations. Some people going to make sacrifices for family time so that they can go and participate in this event because they're excited for this event, especially since it's the very first event. And it's just not a place I think Lorcana and Ravensburger want to find themselves in. You don't want to be that family-oriented card game that's pulling people away from family time. To a lesser extent, the registration date for the Chicago regional being on Easter Sunday at noon. Another, maybe momentary lapse in judgment or just not thinking it through when they were selecting dates for these, to where, you're taking people right at lunchtime on, and again, another huge family holiday, and saying, hey, you need to be sitting in front of your computer hitting refresh 50 times so that you can get into one of the limited seats that we have available for that. Again, I'm going to play this off as an oversight and not intentional, something that, they had limited options left to get this rolled out in the timeline that they wanted to get it rolled out on, and that's what they decided on. That could also change, as we're going to talk about in a little bit. The registration for the Chicago, Illinois event may be suspended indefinitely. We'll get into that here shortly. The other thing I want to point out, we don't know a whole lot about these other events or venues yet, and it sounds like a lot of the information on those will be changing, but I was surprised at the number of events. We've only got 6 events for qualifiers. We know that the top players are going to get invites. Clearly, these 6 and the 4 European events are not going to produce enough qualifiers for the Worlds on their own. So I do expect we may see some other events added into this. Maybe not necessarily championship events. I think these are all the championship events that we are going to get for 2024. But we may see events at like Gen Con, or even possibly tied to some of the theme parks that may have some invites available for those individuals. Maybe a non-traditional format like a sealed event or a draft event that ends up providing some seats for the World event as well. So while I do think this is not enough events for the Championship Series, they have also mentioned that there would be other ways to qualify for Worlds. So we may see some championship kind of adjacent type events that also provide those events. If you're familiar with the One Piece organized play, they do their regionals, which have invites, and they also have their Treasure Cup series, which also provides invites. Very similar tournament structure, different rewards and promos for those events, but also they include those invites as well. So we could see something like that that has not been announced yet. And hopefully that kind of fills in some of the blank spaces that we're looking at for the Worlds tournament. So looking at the 4 European events that we have scheduled, we have May 25th and 26th in Lille, France. We've got July 6th and 7th in Bochum, Germany. August 3rd and 4th in Bologna, Italy, which lines up with Gen Con weekend that weekend. And then September 21st and 22nd in Birmingham, UK. Now, I don't plan to travel to any of these events, and I do think that there will be limited participation from any of the North American participants. But I do think this is a severe underestimation of the demand for these events in the UK and other European nations. I know there's been a lot of people that have been very vocal about it, but for events for basically, non-North American participants seems like a gross underestimation of the demand there. Now, with Ravensburger being in Germany, we may see more of those challenge event adjacent type tournaments we were just talking about popping up over there, as it may be easier for them to coordinate those closer to home. So we may end up with not necessarily an even mix of tournaments for the North American and the European market, but more of a balancing of some of those events if and when those do pop up. So for those of you who may be wondering what these Challenger Series are, these are going to be large competitive events that are currently capped at 512 players. We'll put a pin in that because we'll be talking about that here shortly in the video. For these particular Challenger events, they are going to have unique prizes that are unique to the Challenger events, as well as the top players for these events are going to qualify for the Worlds at the end of this year. So a lot of excitement behind those. If you haven't seen them already, the participation prizes for this, for all players who attend, will be a Dragonfire. It's wrong to call it an Enchanted. It is an exploded frame. There is no frame on it. The foiling is completely different from any Enchanted that we have seen. Very similar artwork to the original Dragonfire here, but you're going to be able to get this for participation in the event, just for getting in, getting your ticket, and showing up. It does have its own rarity symbol as well for these prizes, so very, very cool. It's at its own promo number as well, which really only affects those people who are, trying to assemble, master sets of any kind of sets. It's not going to be a duplicate inside of any of the regular sets. It's going to be part of its own promo set. Top 64 players. And I'll put an asterisk next to this because they have mentioned that if they expand the tournaments past the 512, that they will also be adding additional promos. So as of right now, with the current 512 player cap, top 64 players will be getting a copy of Let It Go, again with that kind of exploded artwork on it. Just a gorgeous looking card. I'm sure these pictures don't even do it justice on what the foiling on these will actually look like. Again, very similar art style to the original artwork of Let It Go that we have in the game, just with this new foiling pattern and rarity symbol. Top 32. Now this is where it gets pretty spicy. We've got a new Cinderella, stout-hearted And this card is absolutely gorgeous. So she's a super rare normally. So we've kind of gone up in rarity from our 2 rares up to top 32 players getting a new super rare. The artwork on this is brand spanking new and looks fantastic in this foiling. Out of all the prizing that they've shown so far, this is actually the card I think looks the best. And again, top 32 players to get one of these particular cards. That takes us to our top 16 players. Again, basically top 10% of the people who will be able to attend these events would be able to get their hands on this Rapunzel. Again, this is the legendary Rapunzel, all new artwork. The foiling that they use for these works really well with like her flowing hair too, and so I think that will make a really attractive foil as well. Would love to get my hands on one of these cards. I do think there will be a very, very hefty premium on these particular cards, though, for people trying to complete their sets of favorite characters. Top 8 is probably the most curious prize I've seen, and I'm not because I dislike it, but because I've never seen it. Is this Rapunzel gifted with healing playmat, and in one of the interviews they actually mentioned like the foiling on this playmat. So I can't tell from the picture that there's foiling on it, but I'm curious to see what that would look like, because I've never seen a playmat with any kind of foiling on it. Very nice looking artwork. Again, it's the artwork from the top 16. But only 8 of these will be given out at the events. Again, at the current payout rates, again, just about 1% of the people participating in the event will be able to get their hands on one of these top 8 mats. So I'm sure it will have a very hefty price tag with it as well. And then that brings us to our top 4 prizing, which you can't see the full artwork. They have not released that yet, but they have confirmed that this will be a Mickey Mouse Brave Little Tailor, and it will be serialized, meaning that it will be numbered to a set number. Now, we don't know how many that will be. Currently, again, if we go off 10 events with only 4 at each event, that would be a 40 copies of this. However, they've already mentioned that they have prizing to expand these events, so I would imagine there will be a fair number more than just 40 that these are number 2, but we don't know for sure how many that is going to be. Will it be out of 100? Will it be something similar to like the One Piece card game where they're out of like 700 and they just have lots of extras to kind of do other events with as well? We don't really know. The artwork hints at maybe even like a gold-plated one, so we may even have like a metallic version of these. Again, it could just be to distort the image that much more, but we do know it will be a serialized Brave Little Tailor. And a lot of people were already hypothesizing that when they announced that we'd have a championship series, so very excited to see what that final artwork looks like. As for the actual format of these events, they will all be Swiss, but the first day of the elimination rounds on Saturday will be in a best of 2 format, with the Sunday top cut being best of 3. Now, I actually was not familiar with a best of 2 format. I had not heard that expression before, so if you're not familiar with it, it's basically you will roll to see who goes first in game 1 or game 2. The person who wins the die roll will get to choose which one of those games they go first, and their opponent will go first the other game. So this helps to negate the turn 1 advantage that anybody would have in this game, because both players are going to get an opportunity to go first. Now, if you win both games, you still get your 3 points that go towards your tiebreakers and your pairings for the rest of the event. If you win one game and your opponent wins one game, you each get 1 point. So similar to like a draw and a best of 3. And then if you guys don't complete your one game or you lose, then there are no points that are awarded. So it speeds up the day 1 Swiss rounds because there are no game 3s across the board. It also takes away any reason why somebody may be slow playing to play for time. All in all, I know a lot of people are upset about this. I actually don't mind this. It's going to have a lot of pairings that you wouldn't see in a normal tournament, because there are going to be a lot of what looks like draws in a normal best of 3. But it will help speed up the process. It will eliminate, kind of some of the unethical slow play that they were wanting to get rid of. And while there's less strategy and less emphasis on the die roll and going first, it is still kind of a strategic play. Winning the die roll, you may elect to go first second, since you don't have any information about your opponent's deck. They don't have any information about yours. And then in the game where you have the most information available, you'll elect to go first in that game. So it does kind of turn a little bit of the traditional best of 3 strategy on its head. Now, once they get to top cut, which is again currently set at 32 players, now it does switch to single elimination and will be best of 3 for the Sunday tournament. So once you get into top 32, each win or loss will be either progress you to the final round or finalize your standings up until they have their last remaining undefeated for the event. Now, with all that, there's actually been a number of announcements and challenges that have already popped up with this Challenger Series. The first of which they addressed in regards to the very first one that is happening on May 25th and 26th in Atlanta, Georgia, and that is set legality. So up until this point in time, we've not really dealt with any kind of pre-release / main release between the LCS releases and the big box store releases. It's not really been an issue, so it's not really come up in any kind of real relevance. But this date falls in between the actual LCS release date, which is the weekend of May 17th, and the mass market release, which is May 31st. Meaning if you didn't have access to a LCS personally, you would have to get all your singles online or wait to be able to buy products on the 31st, and you would not have access to it. So they have officially come out and said that for this event that the new set 4 will not be legal. So it will be the current meta that we are in right now for this first event. It will be the only event that has the current set 3 and before. Everything past that, set 4 will be legal, and I would assume going forward for the championship series that they will not allow the set until it has hit mass market to be used in these championship series. They have also said that this rule only applies for the championship series, and that for any local events or any other events that the set legality is the day that it hits LCSs. So a little bit of an odd approach, is a very conservative approach. I don't really fault them for going this on the decision, but it is a little surprising that they just intentionally avoided calling the LCS a release a pre-release. It kind of muddied the water with this, and I'm sure it will be confusing to some. I am sure that there are going to be people who show up for this event that have set 4 cards already in their deck, and it's just going to cause problems. You've got to think we're going to have almost 2 weeks of testing with a new set out at this point in time, and it just creates a lot of confusion for not your competitive players so much, but your more casual players. And despite what your opinions are on these events, there will be plenty of casual players in attendance for them. All right, so like we mentioned before too, we've already had registration for the very first event. Went live yesterday at noon and sold out pretty much instantaneously, with a lot of people kind of left holding the bag. Carts, were full, and by the time they were able to check out, the tickets were out of stock. A lot of people were angry about this. PPG even reporting that they had a traffic of over 40,000 unique IPs that came in to their site whenever they launched this tickets. 40,000 for 512 is going to leave a lot of people upset, obviously. Now, I will say that 512, I think they were being very conservative, and from the get-go, they did say that we have left these open based on demand. to open this up to more individuals. And credit to Ravensburger for addressing it quickly, but I do think, just like whenever they released Set 1 numbers, they have been really underestimating the demand for their own product all across the way. 512 is simply not, it's not a real tournament expectation for a game the size of Lorcana, with the mass appeal that a game like Lorcana has, especially when you throw participation promos in and no need to qualify for those events. So yeah, a lot of people are angry. They have already come out and said, we do plan to expand all of these events, and for the time being, they have put a pin in any future tickets being sold. So as of right now, while they did have Sunday being the day for ticket registration for the Chicago event, we don't know if it will be resumed by that point in time. So just keep that in mind, especially if you're taking time out of your schedule on, for Easter plans to participate and log in and try to get those tickets. They do plan to expand all these events, including the Atlanta, Georgia event, to host as many people as possible. And until they can do that, they have paused all future ticket sales. Now, I also don't want you to get your hopes up too high, because the reality is, I don't think that they can supply the demand with the number of venues they have. 6 venues is simply just not enough for the North American population for a game like Disney Lorcana. If we're talking about the reality and the logistics of it, they're probably going to have to cap the event at an absolute maximum of probably like 3,500, and that's a lot. Like that, I don't know each and every one of these venue locations, so I don't even know if it's going to be possible for each and every one of these venue locations. But that would be a lot, and still probably not enough to get everybody who wants to play in these events playing in these events. Now, what ideally needs to happen is more of these events, and going into next calendar year, I'm sure they are planning for more, which will help dramatically. But we're working with what we have right now. So I don't know what expectations are going to be. I would assume safely that they are going to be able to double the 512 that they have across the board, hopefully at least triple the 512 across the board for all the North American and European events. And hopefully we have an announcement coming, possibly of something to help kind of supplement this Challenger series that we were talking about. Something that is going to have maybe unique pricing. So I don't know how much it'll help from the people chasing those specific cards, but come with, equivalent pricing. Another numbered serialized card and new promos, etc., with invites and all the accoutrements that go with that to hopefully pull away some of the demand for some of these events. If somebody's like, hey, I've got the time and the means to maybe do one big Lorcana event, if there's only 6 of them, that's a lot of competition for those 6 events. If there ends up being, 10 to 12 events that are, unique and equivalent to one another, that can help ease a lot of that on there, because very few people are going to be traveling to every single one of the events that get posted. So this will help keep that demand down. So there you guys have it, the full breakdown of the championship series, including locations and format, as well as the pricing for those events. I do think we're going to see a very large number of seats added to these events, which is a good thing. So make sure you keep yourself posted for more information to come. If you guys have individual questions or comments, leave them down below. And until next time, guys, Hobby Hero.